My name is Matthew Murphy, and I am a retired Green Beret, retired from this Special Forces group, but I'm also a level 1 sniper, which means that I have graduated the highest level of training for snipers that you can do in special operations. First of all, anywhere the president's going to go, there are teams from the Secret Service that go out days, if not weeks, if not months, before the president will ever be at that spot. And they do a site security assessment. And they do that with the local police forces and agencies to ensure that every potential security threat or vulnerability is secured and, of course, protected against. Now, this is done way before Donald Trump will ever get there, and they know every place that the president will be, and the sniper team especially is responsible for ensuring that no one can take a shot at the president. Now, that does not mean that the sniper team just sets up with their guns and scans the crowd and shoots. No, what they do, the most important thing they do, pre-Donald Trump showing up, is within a 360-degree environment of that podium of the president, they ensure that there is not a place that is open that will be accessible by someone with a rifle to take a shot at the president. So they make sure those places are barricaded off, inaccessible, and heavily guarded, so there is no way you are going to get to the place where you can even shoot the president with a rifle before the president shows up. Then they scan the crowd and those places with the rifle, just in case by some miracle you do. Now, you're not going to tell me, I don't care who you are, don't listen to the media, that some 20-year-old kid that looks like he played Dungeons and Dragons in his mom's basement is trained on a gun, especially a sniper rifle like that, is a registered Republican, and then can access anywhere near the vicinity of that crowd, of that event, with him not dressed in a uniform and that sniper rifle. He was wearing American flag t-shirt and pants, and he had a rifle. You're going to tell me that that kid went through all this levels of security, somehow got into the closest building to the president, then accessed the rooftop of the closest building to the president, then had the time to unpack his rifle, lay down in the prone, and then take 5 to 8 well-aimed shots at the president before he was decisively engaged by the Secret Service's counter sniper teams or a local police department. I don't know who they were. Most likely police. You're going to tell me all that happened and a 20-year-old kid did that without it being heavily planned, coordinated, and people on the inside making it happen? There's absolutely no way possible that that kid was able to get up there and take those shots at the president without a lot of internal help.
It's called Project 2025. This 920-page document would usher in the most conservative executive branch in modern American history, if enacted. It's the brainchild of the Heritage Foundation, a conservative think tank and lobbying group that has helped staff Republican administrations since the Reagan era.
This is a great group, and they're going to lay the groundwork and detail plans for exactly what our movement will do and what your movement will do when the American people give us a colossal mandate to save America. And that's coming. That's coming.
Welcome to What's Left, a weekly political discussion challenging the mainstream left. My name is Andy Lipson, and I'm joined by Kenny Zepeda and Alex. And once again, you can see Eduardo is not here today. We are online at what'sleftpodcast.com. You can find the link to our blog in the episode notes. Please subscribe, rate, review, turn on your notifications, share your favorite episode, and jot down our information wherever you found this episode. So, like we said last week, we talked about elections last week, and I'm so glad that we held off for talking about the U.S. elections this week, because what I thought we were going to be spending the majority or all the time talking about was really largely on the Democratic Party side. All this craziness of Biden, he's got to go, he's got to step down. No, I'm not going to step down. And of course, the context of that is like the Democratic Party saying that they must win in order to ensure democracy. I think there's lots of things going on there when they say that. But in the interim, between over the weekend, somebody apparently took a shot at Donald Trump at Butler in Butler County, Pennsylvania, during a campaign speech. And so there's been lots of discussion about what exactly took place there and what it means politically for, well, I think what we're going to talk about here is maybe some of our thoughts on what took place, but what does it indicate about where the U.S. state is headed next? I think one thing to establish, maybe we can all say this, I'm not voting for either candidate. I'm not, in a sense, I'm not concerned about either candidate. I'm concerned about the state, regardless of what candidate comes in. So that's my starting point on this. Maybe people can share that, and then we'll get into more of a discussion in terms of where you are in regards to. And I'm not voting for any alternative. Like, I'm not voting in this election. I'm done with the voting in general. So that's kind of where I stand. Kenny, what about you?
Same. I think I was trying to do math as to the last time I voted, and it was probably Obama, the second term for Obama. Maybe, I don't even remember. The point is that I haven't voted over on close to a decade or more than a decade, and so I'm not going to change that. And I was talking to my partner about that, and I'm pretty sure that's one thing that I'm not going to ever do again. And like we shared on the last episode, right? Like part of like this illusion of democracy and this trap of voting. And so, yeah, no, and not even propositions, because that's something that people often cite, right, to kind of lure you to vote. Like, this proposition matters. I know that this candidate, but often we don't even know what the hell we're voting for. It seems like we're voting for the one thing or it's the opposite, and it's all a trap. So no, not voting.
And Alex?
Yeah, I mean, similar to Kenny, there was a time when I voted, and I would say, for me at least, there was a time when I was maybe more enthusiastic than the average person about voting. I will add the idea that I believe in participatory politics. And so, I believe in a sort of democratic process, but I think what has to be done is a locality needs to be built. Something that I recently have been trying to get into, and this is something I'd like to talk to you guys maybe more personally at another time about, but I'm trying to get into just forming small councils of people, teaching people how to get organized, getting used to moving about things in a certain way, not one big banner necessarily. I mean, one banner that we're all, saying we're adhering to, but no big organization, no central command, just there's a message. We all agree to this message. Maybe we have big meetings, but I think people need to disconnect from the arenas of power that are currently, dominating us, whether that's the mainstream democratic electoral process, or even in some ways like the economic market, social media, etc. I'm primarily concerned with trying to find that next step, because I agree with you. We have to, like, the voting process. This electoralism is not exactly it, but if it is not it, then we must come up with some sort of response. So I've already, this ever since the moment of the assassination attempt, honestly, because I'm a historian, and so I, as a modern day person, sometimes certain moments pop out to me as this is potentially a moment, regardless of what kind of effect it actually has, what it really means, what people think it means. It's obviously a big moment, and it kind of started a metamorphosis. So I've been really concerned with trying to figure out what it is we're going to do instead of voting.
Yeah. Well, here's what I'll say is I think I'm going to ask each of us to talk about what you made of these last several days, because I'm assuming that people know what's happened and everyone has their different pieces of information. So I'll kind of maybe start and give my thoughts, and then we'll just go around. First off, in the run-up to this election, as of last week, I was pretty convinced that not just that Trump was going to win. So prior to this, prior to whatever happened on Saturday, I was convinced Trump was going to win. And largely, like Jake Kleisik, who's been on our show, was convinced that the establishment was largely behind him, doing a kind of kayfabe and fake out of like, oh, we're going to put this guy behind jail and da-da-da-da. But everything they were doing was just pushing him further and further up the polls. And the Democrats were so like sclerotic. And I don't think it seemed almost not accidental that they were sclerotic. They knew the kind of candidate they had. So I was pretty convinced that Trump was going to win and the establishment was going to be behind him. Again, remember, he posed himself in 2016 as the kind of a right populist opposition, tear down the swamp, take down the swamp, those kinds of things, drain the swamp. And I bought into that in 2016. By 2020, I pretty much was convinced that he was captured. If there was any opposition in him, he was completely captured by 2020. And so I was like, okay, this is a captured guy basically playing games with the establishment. playing ball with the establishment. So he would do that. And then this event happened, and initially there were two ways I looked at it. I mean, and there are three. To me, there are three possibilities. One, that this assassination attempt was just a complete f up by the security staff of Trump's, just like just these are a bunch of clown show basically, and they just fucked it up, and he almost got killed. Second was that this was an inside job by the state, by the deep state of some sort, to get him, and they kind of opened up a lane for an operant, using some kind of MK Ultra kind of tactics to get this guy behind it and this kid, and created a lane for him, and then had this, and there was an actual attempt to assassinate Trump, but it was by the deep state. And then third is the idea that this is just a staged event, because the first thing I said once this had happened was, oh my God, now it's a lock. Trump is done. He's going to win. If he survives, if you thought his life was in danger. And by and large, I had eliminated that last one, the staged idea, until this morning when I talked to Jake. And I will tell you this, that the least likely for me, the least likely thing that happened here was that this was a security fuck up. All right. So the only two options that I consider are either there's a deep state attack on this guy, or this was just part of even getting him more colossal support prior to what is going to be a Trump victory, and then a kind of, really, I think, the centralization of power within the state. Because if this is in operation with the deep state, then they understand that their guy who poses as a populist threat to it is going to come in and use, again, the fake out of like all these things to take down the state are actually going to be about centralizing authority within the U.S. state for both internal purposes of crackdown and external purposes of extending wars. And there's ideas about what that might happen. So I'm 50-50 between those two options. I think the idea that I think the more dangerous one is the one where, like, and look, if I looked at that ear injury, I don't see an injury. I see Trump as he was in WWE or WWF. I can see him totally slapping up a little thing up there and totally faking it out and things like that. So I think that's entirely possible. So for me, the only possibility I exclude, I'm not saying it's not possible, it's just the one I exclude, is the idea that this was staged somehow, either staged by a deep state trying to attack Trump, or staged by Trump in conjunction with the deep state to really just give him a colossal victory, and bring all the wins behind him, and then I think we're going to see some things after the election that I think are going to be not good. But his populist base is going to support it in the same way that Obama's giant victory was able to get an anti-war base to support more war. So I can see a similar thing happen. So that's how I look at it. And I'll just leave it at that. Kenny, why don't you go next?
So when my brother texted me about this, I wasn't even paying attention. And the first thing that I thought is like, what's really happening here? like anytime there's any major news, and especially when like there's uniformity on the message, I'm always skeptical, right? Like that was the case for COVID, 9/11, Iraq, Afghanistan, and all this stuff. And so I also consider right away that possibility of a staging, but then I also started considering, he doesn't need this more, right? But then I realized that that's assuming that these bipartisan politics are in fact, like a factor in what's happening. And so I still consider that it could be that, like a staging. I kept trying to see the same fucking video and see because he touched his ear, right? He could have broken some shit on his ear or, and put up a show because, I definitely don't consider a fuck up like accidental thing by the Secret Service and the security forces that, they, because I've been around events where there's high profile people and I've seen the fucking security that they do. Even Nancy Pelosi used to go eat at one of my brother's restaurant and they had people that would security teams that would come ahead of time, and scout and post people. I also had the last restaurant that I managed, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, that lady that was, a darling to the liberal class, and she came over, and I know the type of security they have. Evacuation plans. They look at exits. They have people posted at different locations to ready. They have the security team sitting by the door, one next to the table. In I didn't see that happen. When the shooting started. I didn't see that response, and so I saw a lackadaisical thing. So I am very weary of, I don't have certainty that this actually happened, or I don't think that they needed to. We know that prior to this, is Biden was in trouble. There is no way, no one, Trump for me was the certainty. If anything, if there is something that will be the outcome of this, is that thing that I mentioned before, that the U.S. is going to need some sort of event to create national, what do you call, sorry, like a national pride and more people behind a project, right? Like fighting a war, or falling behind some sort of leader. Because even now, what I've seen is certain people that are critical of the system falling in line. In some way, just playing the lesser evil card, because Trump surfaced victorious out of this, and because now he's suddenly a threat to the system, right? Which is really the message that he's used to capture his base, right? That he's an anti-system person, when in reality, like you mentioned, we've seen what he's done in the name of the system. And and maybe we'll get into it later, but because we also have to analyze the factions that exist within power, right? Because power is not a monolith. The ruling class is not always marching on the same drumbeat, right? Like, especially internally, they do have some wrestling. I think some of it is genuine as to how they want to go about things, but ultimately they have the same interest, which is advancing power, access market resources and all these things. So I guess what I'm saying is that I lean more on the side of, this is more staging to get him to be that heroic figure that is going to be needed to advance the wars that are coming. The accelerating, intensifying wars that are coming, and even that photo op. And I'm sorry to keep going, but that picture that surfaced, right? It was so like staged, like to me, like, oh, what a perfect.
Do you mean the picture with the flag in the background and him like this? Yeah.
He's like, after he said fight, coming down the stairs, and they're not really covering him. Like, I've seen other assassination attempts, right? Like videos, and I've seen responses, like even the Maduro, right? When remember the drone that tried to take him, and they have fucking suitcases that become bulletproof shit that, to surround and protect. This didn't happen. None of this happened. He was out there to be seen victorious, and it's still, I don't buy into this. I don't buy that he was being taken out by the deep state.
I've been trying to figure out what I was even going to say for this, because this is a very difficult moment. In many ways, it's one that I foresaw, for actually since I was a kid. In ways, this event has been signaled. So in certain rooms, in certain places, these things have been in plans for many, many years, and those conversations have been leaked out slowly, I think, over time, and they've ended up in our media. I don't know to what extent that's a direct result of people trying to put that message out there, but I guess I must have picked up on something to feel like somehow this is spookily familiar, because you could have replaced Trump with so many other people, but regardless, you can feel the movement of great forces of history, at play. And I think my position is that with great drama, there is great true action behind the scenes somewhere. I do agree with your view, Kenny. The elite are not monolithic. And while there was a drama that played out there, it was the signaling of probably a victory that was achieved much longer ago. by this side of the elite who were trying to use Trump as their pawn. On a deeper level, I mean, here's where, guys, I'm trying to like keep my steady hand, because we're really entering into some deep levels, right? And I don't want to start getting paranoid, essentially, But I think about Trump. I think about the fact that since I was a child, I knew his face. I was born in 1996. Okay. I'm part of that generation that saw Trump on VHS, or might have seen Trump on WWE, right? Might have seen Trump on the TV, in the tower, on a day, as a tourist. Trump has been inserted into the American consciousness for a long time, in a way that very few presidential candidates ever have been. I will say that too. You go back and think about it, what Clinton kind of, but not even really, right? He was he was a media personality, but he had not been inserted really in a calculated way over decades, in a subconscious way. This is where, on a certain level, I must acknowledge the extent of the power of psychological warfare and the way in which people are planning things out to reach the subconscious rather than the conscious is intense. Because I can only acknowledge Trump's victory through some reigning of subconscious forces. Because that's what this all feels like. Whatever people are saying does not seem to correspond with what's really the motivation for all of these energies that we're displaying right now. Because I think about it. Why do people want to go into this stupid fucking war? I mean, you're right. I do hear people supporting this kind of, falling into line. But then all the time, whenever I'm having a personal moment, people are always, oh God, the people in power, what do they know? Oh, they just want to see us die, So it's so strange how, this cognitive dissonance can exist on such a deep level. Insofar as was the event, I tend to believe from the moment it happened, I tend to believe it was to the benefit of Trump. Like, regardless of if he planned it, which is going to be hard to prove to the utmost. So maybe we shouldn't necessarily commit ourselves to proving it. What we can easily prove is that it had the whiff of a staged event. Like, there was certainly some Trump plan in action where he was smiling. He was ready. Oh, they tried to kill me. Cool. But it is extremely suspicious, the background of the shooter, it just, the whole, like, he wasn't overly extreme. It's interesting that he was a centrist. Like, in a way, it was, like one of their own trying to eat the own flock. Like, there's this weird, maybe a message in here somewhere. Like that's what seems so strange about it, where it's like, this person that apparently was a GOP member and apparently donated to some progressive caucus, right? So somehow perfectly balanced, right? So like what was the message here? Like the center cannot hold. Like there's some weird cryptic. It had the air of psychodrama. A drama meant to not to give you an understanding, but to affect your behavior, to trigger responses that you do not necessarily have total account over. To me, that's the field we're operating in. For Trump to even have gotten to the point that he got to, and this is where, many years ago, I was in community college when the Trump thing was originally rising up, and I didn't take it seriously because I didn't take him seriously because he's an idiot. I mean, he's a crass person. I certainly have a low opinion of him, and that's easy enough. But I didn't quite stop to think, because people at the time would say, oh, he's literally Hitler, you're a fascist, this, and I wanted to be careful because I also felt like, well, there's a lot of differences. People don't really, they seem to not really be showing an understanding of the historical reasons for Hitler's specific rising. And I do not believe that Trump and Hitler are total analogs, but I do think that statement was getting at something deep, which is that he represented the finishing touch on some sort of deep subconscious force that was coming to existence, to bear, to actual manifestation. Because It's odd. It's odd how he came up, and it's been sheer power of personality and force. So this is where, to me, as much as we talk about bureaucrats and the logisticians and sort of the technocracy, right? I also think there's this other. I can't help but go back to this soft power versus hard power discussion. Trump represents somebody who obviously possesses command over hard power, but the way in which he has succeeded has been through sheer soft power, personality, but a personality which glitches. It is not a honest peer-to-peer interaction that happens with Trump. You already know about Trump before Trump ever even considers who you are, right? That's been a fact in his life almost entirely. So he's really set up to be, like this massive hero of the American project, even though, anyone that has studied knows that he doesn't seem to know anything substantial about the actual history of the American project or what's happened or what's going on. He doesn't need to. America doesn't need to. America had to forget itself to continue. That to me is what I'm seeing every day. And that's also what I think the strategy is going to be. These people that used to be, I'm a freedom-loving patriot. The deep state's coming for me. I'm here waiting and ready. When they're marching alongside the state, when they're marching alongside the literal state, I hope some of them have a second thought and realize that deep state that they were so afraid of is truly manifest at that point. Because that's really what it feels like. Because Trump is the swamp, a new level of swamp that I don't think we really, as bad as the people we've been dealing with have been, I do think it gets even worse. And his version of America is fucking terrible. I think we should have been arguing for revolution from the beginning, regardless, even when it was Barack Obama and everything like that. But I just also have to say, just on a number line, Obama's over here and Trump is over here in terms of like level of fucked up ego formation, ability to like turn things into race war or, class war or things like this. He seems to be hitting on a deep subconscious forces. I know I'm saying a lot of things, I'm making a lot of sort of claims, but this is my immediate reaction. It's why it's been so hard for me to really know, because it just feels like it's hitting on such big forces. And so I'm trying to be careful, but I can't help but to have those kinds of observations.
First of all, I guess I would urge you to not be careful. Number one, we have, we don't have a ton of subscribers, and this isn't. So I believe when I say one thing versus another, it's not because that I know about these world events. It's more a reflection of what it's a Rorschach test. It kind of gives you a view of how I'm viewing the world. And I don't believe that Trump is, to me, Trump is no different than any of these clowns I've seen all along. I really agree with you that he's kind of been he's definitely the best known American president that we've had. But for sure, like I don't see him nearly as honestly, I don't see him as, if you will, if I was going to weigh it out, he's a lesser evil than Bill Clinton to me. He's a lesser evil than Barack Obama, at least in 2016 and 2020. I would have, if you wanted to use those sort of politics and what he represents in his regime, if you will, definitely a lesser evil to Clinton or to Obama, and certainly to Biden. But I do agree with you that it comes back. I have also been thinking about the hard power, soft power. And why this matters for me is when I talk about Trump, I'm really talking about the deep state. And like that person you mentioned who has the gun, I definitely worry about that deep state. I think the permanent state, where these elected characters are just theater for us, they're using theater for some reason. Now, the question is, was this theater a hard power act to take down a president who is in some ways acting as a barrier to them, which would really contradict everything I have been seeing up until this moment. That's why I was having trouble with it, because I was already assuming that the state, the permanent state, had gotten behind this guy, and now they're taking him down. I'm in a contradiction there, and so that's a contradiction for me, not for the deep state. They know what they're doing, but the idea that this was a complete stagecraft and that yes, people got killed, but those people got killed by the deep state. Essentially said, we're going to kill some people, but we're definitely not killing Trump, and we're staging an event to allow ourselves to take some steps in this coming period. What was really important about Trump in 2016? It transformed the U.S. relationship with China. It transformed all that shit about WTO and Trans-Pacific partnerships. Gone. All right. Trump changed politics decisively when he came to power. There was less bombing of places and things like that. Not nearly as much as Obama, but he really did set us on a course towards taking on China as its opponent. I think he represented a different way of attempting to do it than going after Russia and China at the same time. I do think when Biden came to power, it was like they got back to their plan A, which was we're going to take down Russia and then we're going to take down China. I personally think Trump's way of doing this was a smarter way. If I'm playing the U.S. ruling class, they should have gone with Trump and Biden fucked their shit up, in my opinion, to the extent that there's a policy difference on how to be the hegemon. Because there's no difference over being a hegemon. That the difference is how. But what I see today, and since I probably now, after listening and hearing from Jake and hearing Kenny, I guess I would have to say that probably the things that's most consistent with how I've seen this is this was a staged event to really put the winds of power, the wind into Trump when he takes power, because it looks like there is one of the things with the JD Vance thing is they're talking about getting NATO to take more of the responsibility in Ukraine so they can really focus on China. Now, personally, I don't think they can do that. I don't think that's possible. But I know there have been talk of trying to make that happen, and they can't get it to. I think they can't get that done with Biden. I do think they can get it more to. If they were going to get it done, it's going to be with Trump. So that's one thing. And I think the idea of getting people, to the extent that there is a freedom movement in this country, the idea of getting those people to sign on to more data collection, more centralizing of state power, and using that authority, and of course, all of it being talked about in terms of, much of it being talked about in terms of the border, but all the state that's going to be empowered to defend the border obviously is going to be able to be used internally as well, and it will be used internally. So that is what I guess I'm now preparing myself for, is that it is possible that they are trying to really gin up a moment for themselves where they can use a Trump victory to really, again, try to get their house back in order as a result of what it has been a hard time for them, particularly internationally, as they've been losing wars abroad and politically slipping from their hegemonic position. So that's how I see this. Kenny or Alex?
I feel that he's the perfect, like Jake said that he's kind of the perfect, person to carry kind of like the right, quote unquote, right wing, right, like energy. And I think given the situation, right, we talked about the economy being a factor, right, in people's livelihoods, on how they voted in Europe, right. My sense is that there are masses of people in this country that understand that the economy is not great, even though they keep lying on the fucking news. That understand that these wars are a waste of money, right? Forget the principles, right? Like, but it is a waste of money, and I think mostly on the right wing, right? Like they see it in that way, and they see a deteriorating, collapsing, infrastructure or livelihoods of people. And obviously, on the right wing, he has captured that completely. He has a loyal base, in now the alternative, right? Like the Biden, look at what the mess is created, right? And Trump's now, like, to those people that maybe were on the fence, who are more critical, because I don't even account for the liberal Democrats who are fully like lost in the identity politics and the politics of privilege and race and all this stuff. And like they're not even part of this equation. They're gonna vote what they're gonna vote. But I do think there's a lot of critical people who are a little more critical, even though they still get captured, right? People still think they're independent, but we still get captured somehow. But that's where this event and this version of Trump, right? Like, because there's also talk that, he's changing his tune and about talking about unity, right? That's his message. And, while still feeding that meat, right, to his base, the mass deportations, right? Because those are the people who are to blame, right? Like for this economic downturn, you know, or this economic crisis. Forget the fucking banks, forget all the money we printed, forget the wars, forget the financial. I always have a hard time with that word. Financialization of this system, right? Like we don't produce really shit here, like like by and large. Uh, in terms, we talked about the war, how we don't have a war economy in order to compete, for what's coming, and so there's gonna be more violent uses of potentially nuclear war, because that's the logic, right? Like if you don't have the ability to engage in a dominant way in a conventional war, you're gonna have to do something, because that's why I go back to the realpolitik, the force, that when you're losing, you have to do something dramatic, right? I was listening to Scott Ritter talk about war. I always like his logistical and tactical stuff. I don't so much agree with his political analysis, but his tactical stuff is very important, because he mentioned that when you're losing, like Israel, in the case of Israel cannot compete, right, in a conventional war. So they're going to have to do something dramatic and throw a punch. If you're going to throw a punch, you better fucking land that punch, because then your opponent is going to land it back and harder. And then it's all out war, and so in that case, again, just going back to Trump, like he's that perfect person right now, and this event solidifies him as a person who will get those people in the middle who are seeing a deteriorating, lifestyle in a country in trouble, because they may not see an empire in trouble, but even people who do talk about empire, Scott Ritter himself, Gardner Nixon, these are people that I listen to who offer analysis that I value, but now they themselves are like, oh, he's the lesser of the two evils, because again, Trump is battling the deep state. That's the fucking narrative. He's a true crusader against the deep state, because people do know. I do think there's masses of people who understand there are some forces beyond the bullshit that we are sold. And I think it's more obvious on the right wing. That's what was my reading for Trump, and that was the complete contempt that the left, Democratic left, liberal left had for right wing voters, and therefore they bought into the Russiagate, right? Because these idiots, how could these idiots elect this, crass whatever, person, and so yeah, he's perfect for this moment, like and for what's to come, and he's the perfect face, because like I don't really think they have true power, like if they actually meant to fucking put a bullet on his head, they would have done it. They wouldn't use this bullshit caliber, rounds, bullshit gun with the scope that was, really not a high power scope, and they would have got it done, especially if you're willing to lose your life, like, and so I going back to Alex, yes, I do think there is a whole mind fuck going on here, and I do think there are some messages that we have to interpret from there, because I think they're trying to consolidate all these different factions of people who are moving to political participation, right, from different angles, and he's capturing everything right now, except again the ones that I just don't like him. Period.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, like, Andrew, just to go back a little bit to what you were saying, and in response to me, I guess the reason why I say Trump is worse is because, again, I kind of see it in sort of a DEFCON like way. Like, he's just a sign that we're entering a more intense period where there's going to be more political violence, more social violence, more repressive measures against the most easily oppressed people, right? First, and then it's going to go up in scale from there, in terms of people that are against him, as has always been the historical methodology of any sort of, I don't know if I should call it authoritarian or totalitarian at this point, but a regime that is control oriented. They've always, had tactics for rooting out, and I think it's going to get even more intense. Because I guess for me, I fear for myself, I fear for my comrades, my friends, people that are going to end up dead in jail, turned, betraying their own, because that is the way that these things get done. Because there are going to be people that are against this naturally. That we are not alone in our feelings, but we are kind of few and we're easily isolated. And I think that is the lesson that we need to be looking at most deeply and trying to deal with that problem. Because to me, it's just very soon the death squads are going to be more real. I don't like I that's really my opinion, because it's too built up. That's like because again, if we think about someone like the figure of Hitler, right? He was someone who, it's not just that he was used as a pawn for the plans of others. He had enough force of personality to start moving the people that were trying to move him. I do believe that, because I'm not so conspiratorial to believe that Hitler was a total puppet. From what I can tell, what he represented within the idea of National Socialism, fascism, Nazism, authoritarianism, whatever, there were people that gave him power because they thought they could control him. And he ended up flipping it to a point where many of those initial supporters ended up getting purged later on, And so I kind of see Trump like this kind of a figure, because I think he himself, he's not Biden. He's not just a tool who's so egotistically, blinded by his own self that he can't see what's really going on. From how well this has all been orchestrated and how well he plays the fool, it seems like I think I have to recognize him as a higher level of threat as an individual than I would Biden. I think that's really what I'm trying to argue, is like, I don't want us to treat this like this is business as usual, because I think there is enough going on that is extremely wild, and like there's a lot of preparation for this. I mean, the Supreme Court has given him an all go. He had, all charges against him have been dropped. Any moderate opposition to him has been totally silenced. All of us that are still opposing him are going to look like total wingnuts, as always, right? And it's going to be this whole thing. And in a situation like that, things can get really fucked up, And that's, I guess, something that I can't help but think about, because that's also part of the reason I want to get organized. If we're organized, we have a higher chance of surviving this than if we're just like disorganized groups of like semi-attached, identities. Because I mean, if you want to talk about identity politics, I mean, politics themselves are about identities. I mean, a political ideology is an identity. It doesn't mean anything until you actually start acting on it, until you have a concrete, reality to it. And right now, those of us that are against the state itself, against the project of the state, and want to take control over our own lives, we are actually in a minority, and we require a vast mass. And we have some numbers, but we definitely need to get more organized. That's the thing that I keep thinking, because the game that's being played here is serious. Because I guess this is where listening to you guys, talk about this third world war, everything like that. It's true. Like this is going to be like the death of millions, like things are going to be terrible. And right now we're not quite at that stage, right? Where it's the literal open war. There are open conflicts in many regions, but it is not the thing where there is the general call to draft. Like that's going to be almost too late. Like, I don't know. Because as a historian, I want to believe that if the international socialist movement had its shit together, and this is where I feel so bad, but if we had, leaders who were more of their convictions and people who were more trained in the operation of their organizations, They could have held the line. And even with World War I happening, when it inevitably started to fall apart for all states, regardless of whether they were on the winning or losing side, the workers of the world could have risen up because that was the most nonsensical war of all time. And now here we are being faced with what is surely to be an even more nonsensical war. You know, that's like all of this violence, it's all been achieved through manipulation. It's all been like none of the shit that the people that are going to be dying for this, that they're willing to die for, most of it is a manipulation, a lie, a misdirection, a half truth, right? And I can't help it but feel like, again, like I need to treat it as a major moment so that somehow I can have the energy necessary, because this is psychologically punishing. I don't know about if it is for you guys or for anyone else out there, but this really feeling all of this stuff and thinking about all of the ways that this could go down and all of the terrible things that are sure to happen, especially if I have this dream of a just society operated by common people, then I just am obsessed with this idea. What is to be done, as Lenin famously asked. And we need to be asking that question, because obviously this game is being played in a way it's out of our hands. Trump has been an inevitability. That's where I have to agree with y'all. He has. I've known that. Some of my friends, they go, "What? No, are you?" And I go, "No." He's of course he's going to win. And they don't believe it. They don't believe it. But here we are now. And so I want to kind of, in a way, move past it and go, what are we actually going to do about this? Because if we stare too long at this thing, we're gonna be caught with our pants down, and that's certainly where I don't want to be.
I guess where I agree with you is that it is unfortunate and tragic that there is nothing as tragic as the state of the left was during the time of World War I for the decisions it made. There was a much broader, and there was a revolution. There was a possibility of a revolutionary movement, and there were revolutionaries at the time organized. Let's put it that way. That is definitely not the case here in this country. And the revolution, to the extent that there are any revolutionaries, they are scattered to the winds and not organized, and in organizations in their communities and whatever. And that project does have to be started. I guess the part I struggle with as I listen to you, Alex, is so I am fearful for the future for all the reasons I kept on talking about in previous episodes. Where I see these states moving. Some people are thinking that China and Russia's defeat of the United States, which I do believe is kind of coming, represents a good thing, a possibility of multipolar world. I do not see that. I see, for me, there's bad things coming no matter what. Again, for me, ultimately, because we live in a capitalist system. It's a global capitalist system, and it's competitive and violent, and it will lead. And unless overthrown by revolution, it will lead to a crisis that's going to destroy us. I think that crisis is World War III. There are environmental crises. There are many ways for capitalism, I think, to destroy the globe, to make the globe very difficult for humans to live on it. But I want to put it in this way, and maybe this is like Kamala Harris, because I think Biden's out. Kamala Harris will likely be the presidential candidate on the Democratic side. They could win. I still think the hard power crackdown is coming with Kamala Harris, not because it's Kamala Harris, not because it's not Donald Trump, but because the situation the U.S. state finds itself in relationship internationally and internally. If it has to get its shit together internationally, the people they must crack down on in order to make themselves powerful enough to do what they need to do internationally is the U.S. working class. Every empire is built on the basis of its ability to exploit its own class. That's true for Putin. That's true for China. Their ability to project power is all based on internal exploitation to then turn externally and then grab resources as best they can and rinse and repeat kind of thing, so they can build themselves up as powers. So the situation, the wounded animal that is the U.S. state right now is dangerous in the hands of Trump, and it's not in their hands anyway, or Kamala Harris. That danger is already set. It's a question of which one is going to essentially be more easy for the U.S. ruling class to push through these policies. And I do believe a Trump who just got an assassination attempt by the deep state, which is seeing him as a threat, is definitely the guy to bring this hard, to bring the hard shot internationally and to bring the hard shot to the working class here. But no doubt, a Kamala Harris victory would be awful, not because Kamala Harris is not that good a politician, whatever, but because of all the lies that are built. Look, these are the people who are saying, "What if our democracy goes away? When Trump gets elected, our democracy is gone." The people who are saying that democracy is gone are people who literally were not given the right to vote in a primary and are now having their own president selected on them and are begging to have a president selected on them. They're saying, please take my vote away from me. So the people who are trying to defend democracy, this liberal side over here, are begging for an authoritarian. They are literally asking for it. Kamala Harris is just not good as a good authoritarian. They'd be much better to have Trudeau light or not even Trudeau light, I'm not sure, with Gavin Newsom, but they're not going to do that. I think the Democratic Party is going to have to rebrand itself, right? And so I do think Kamala Harris is going to be the candidate for them, but I think it's going to be a complete thrashing for the Democrats, and they're going to rebuild their party. And people are going to say, "Oh, this is the end of the Democratic Party." Absolutely not. They are going to return like Lazarus after Trump does what he does to us for the next 4 years. And they're going to be the alternative that is then going to do as bad as Trump was on us and that regime. Then here come the Democrats to just hit us even harder or do whatever they want harder. That's the game. It's a two-party thing. So for me, I think I'm not worried about Trump or Kamala Harris. I am like you, worried that our people are are largely captured by this notion of fighting for democracy in the Democratic Party or fighting for freedom using a freedom, like the guy who's going to drain the swamp. Like both those things are devastating because for me, I think both those people who are called being part of the left or part of the right, for me, they're equally possible to be brought into the revolutionary movement, and they are equally far away from that. And the revolutionary movement as it exists is shattered, like glass splintered. And then the splinters have been hit with hammers and shattered themselves. So we're like glass dust. And so I do welcome hearing from you about ideas you have about how do we organize? Because I think those are questions that we're going to have to answer. But I don't think we're going to answer that here on this episode. I think that is going to be questions that we'll maybe talk about offline. And maybe if we have some ideas, we can share them with folks. Because ultimately, I'm looking also for inspiration from people who are trying to figure out how to do this. But I guess I'll leave it at that. Kenny or Alex?
I don't know if you wanted to respond, Alex, but I kind of have going back a little bit just to this whole symbolism of the shot taken at his head, right? I wonder too, how much of that is a message to the clowns of the show, the politicians, the political class, the ones that shove shit down our throats, right? Like the Ocasio-Cortez, the Bernie Sanders, I have my theories as to why they're so in line. These radicals, right? They're fucking in line. Like they were perpetrated, advancing the same lies, right? Of the cognitive consistency of Biden, whatever. But in general, this shot is we can take you out at any time. Get in fucking line. If you're trying to do something radical, because again, once you examine the body of work of Trump, he's not a radical. Even though his base might seem as that in this moment in time where I do think there is a specter of something that's going to happen. Some shit is about to happen. And so, yeah, that was my thought, how much of it is a message to them, that we can take you out if we want to, And sorry, and then the last is that, but overall, whether it's Trump, Kamala, Pelosi, the fucking, Newsom, they're not. That's not where power actually rests. That I feel like a lot of institutionalists put a lot of weight into this, and I go back to my critique of Nick Garland Nixon and Scott Ritter, because they are highly analytical people when it comes to tactical shit. When it comes to politics, right now, I'm just like, what the fuck? Kim Iverson, they've been brought back into the fold of the shit that I thought was producing, was coming out of the freedom movement, right? All these people, well, at least Gardner Nixon, I know, I don't know where Scott Ritter, if he was very open about that. Kim Iverson, Jimmy Dore, like we may dismiss them, but they have an audience, for a reason. But they also can function as herders in this project, right? Like willingly or not, and I think it's most not willingly, but it's still they're back into the lesser evilism bullshit from a different angle, and so that tells me that this is a big victory for the system to survive, right? Because we talked in the last episode, that the people who do not vote are potentially a revolutionary well, right? Because they see something that I don't need to play that shit. Something different needs to happen, and whether that becomes actual revolutionary change, that's another question. But here we are again. These people that I thought were coming out of the system, criticizing the system, the corruption, all this shit, they're right back into it.
Well, I guess this is where, for me, I do see it still on this idea of like it being very much linked to the right wing. Because while I agree that, these people that call themselves the left, right, are just as insidious or are part of that same insidious system, there's a way in which the right are the prodigal sons of the elite, because when you think about it, a lot of what the most extreme of fascists, nationalists, fundamentalists, clericalists want is to restore a level of executive power of the elites that hasn't been seen since the Middle Ages or since ancient times, or has indeed never been seen, because they're calling back to some mythological past. It's specifically the far right that has that ideological ability to enable that force. So again, because here's another angle that I want to briefly bring in. Nancy Pelosi does not have paramilitaries, right? Kamala Harris does not have paramilitaries, and the actual military is barely behind any liberal politician, right? Doesn't take a long time asking anyone that's actually in the military whether or not they're more enthusiastic about somebody like Kamala or Pelosi, or if they're more enthusiastic about somebody like Trump. And the fact of the matter is, these right-wing ideas take people who, yes, have been harmed by the system, but then they turn them into perfect servants of the system, right? They're people that said they were against the growth of the state, but really they were people who never really truly understood the positive revolutionary potential of all people, and have wanted in on an elite power somehow, because that's a lot of times that's what I think a lot of these right-wing people are. They say they fight for liberty, or they say they fight for freedom, but they just want their piece of the pie, and they want to keep it exclusive. And that to me is the final defeating. Like, I don't know. This is a conversation we obviously need to continue to keep having. We're not going to cover everything here, but this is where Andrew, you had sent out an email asking about whether or not, we could have a conversation with someone who's like a anti-communist, Catholic thinker. I'm open to having the conversation, but I do want to have this advisory of, I believe truly that just logically, for whatever it's worth, right-wing ideology has much more of a harmonization with the deepest excesses of state power than a centrist or supposedly liberal one does. And which is why we're seeing the rise of a formalized right, a further right once again, right? Because it's excessive, It is unabashed, and it's something which most people would only want to do in their most hidden secret moments. And so it took them a while to grow the courage to think that they could do it this way. And again, I think that's why I hate to keep coming back to it, but that's why I say it's worse. Because I do think it represents a form of state power, which is the state at its most aggressive, the state at its most vulgar, the state at its most psychologically oppressive. Because I look into the eyes of right-wing militants, and regardless of what their backgrounds might have been, I very rarely see the eyes of people who are ever going to want to work with me under any real circumstances. No amount of desire to cooperate is ever going to convince them. They're on the path of blood. And that is terrifying. So
that makes sense. And I think it's the reason why we're having this difference, because there is, I think even when we started, your view of the difference between left and right is different than mine, and I think different than Kenny's. And my friend, he's also revolutionary, Brian, shares your kind of view that no, there is a difference between the left and right that is meaningful. Whereas I go, no, that actually is a political division being utilized. And I don't think we should have that discussion, it's an ongoing one, in fact. But I think it helps me understand why we're kind of like, oh, here's why round 3, and we're still kind of not on the same page a little bit. All I can say is part of what has brought me to a belief that the left is no less for blood is the fact that I worked as a teacher for 20 years and I lost my job because of the left. I was not able to do my job, and I was forced out of my job because of the left. And they would have seen me in a camp. I have no question about that. And I found allies who were willing to help me on the right. And those people have stayed with me even if we disagree. So it has led me to a different view about this. There's some things. So I am no more afraid. I am just as afraid of the left in power, if you will, as the right. And my own life has been more. I've felt more the boot actually on my neck from the left in power, if you will. We are now using terms like left and right in terms of Republican and Democrat, but from those folks in power and hooting for blood, calling for people to be thrown out, largely from the left. So it no longer feels that different. But I think, Alex, what you've done is hit upon why we might be kind of going a little, not in circles, but why we're going to stay in this place, because we have a difference there. Let me see if I want to take it to actually the Democratic Party thing and see what people have to say about that. But Kenny, I want to see if you have any comments before I ask about people's thoughts about the Democratic Party side of this whole crazy show.
Yeah. So I don't know. I guess we need these opposites, so to try to understand what the fuck is happening. I think Jeff was very instrumental in one of the episodes we did where we talked about the origins of this dichotomy of right and left, and right of capitalism, left of capitalism, and so as we understand it now, I don't think it's useful. And again, the COVID experience was that kind of light on me that exposed a lot of the viciousness. Like Lipson said, what was that? What's the dude? Manufacturing consent. What's his name?
Oh, Chomsky.
Noam Chomsky, a fucking intellectual giant of the fucking left, right? Quasi-anarchist or so, whatever the fuck. Like, he was calling for people to go into fucking concentration camps.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so not only that, but I heard the conversations. Me and my brother, our work site, which is small, but we handle customers, a lot of upper middle class level customers. I heard the fucking nasty viciousness that came out of these people, and all I thought was Nazi Germany, and then I made those comments online and people were like, no, you shouldn't evoke those evils. Let's not talk about Nazi Germany. Kenny, talking about Joseph Goebbels, that is instigating, people to think bad. So the thought police is coming from the left, right? Like, and so it may not look the same as the right. And I do think there are dangers either way, these extremes and these energies that are trying to be captured. But I'm not so sure about that dichotomy that the right wing is more dangerous. And in fact, there potentially maybe is a little more, at least until now, of a possibility of getting some shit done if we're in conversation with those people that we think are the fucking enemies of us. And sure, you're absolutely right. They also get fucking captured and manipulated, and brainwashed and confused, just like the left does. It looks different, but I do think that what I hear, your argument is what I've heard in this economy that's been force fed into our head, and also because I have had conversations, with people who are more on the right wing, or plenty of people that I know voted for Trump, and and once you talk to them, you realize what was the motivation. They still got captured, but I'm not so sure that Trump represents that extreme. That extreme, like Lipson says, it's not at the hands of the people at the bottom. That extreme comes at the need of this system to survive, and the players in the system playing for their own fucking survival and doing whatever the fuck they have to do in order to win. And we are just fucking pieces on that game, right? And so that's why I kind of, and don't get me wrong, I still have a hard time listening to some people with more right-wing ideas, because they say some shit that I'm like, oh, that hit a nerve, that hit me emotionally, but I have to struggle with that shit in order to try to understand what the fuck they're trying to say, because a lot of times I don't think they're wrong, in some ways, but I don't think they have a full analysis of the shit. And that's where I guess I would have to come in, and it is hard and whatever, but again, that viciousness, that violence, dude, the fucking technocratic state is being built by the fucking left in the name of fucking liberation, and upside down, what is it, the genome, the genomics, sorry,
Eugenics.
Upside down eugenics. So we're gonna improve humanity, with all this fucking mRNA shit, so but it's still the same shit. We're not good enough, and and like they're not gonna exterminate you directly, maybe, but they can improve you, baby. And we're good for you. All you gotta do is be part of this system and be censored and listen to the fucking experts.
And let me ask this, Alex, because I'd like to move to the Democratic Party side. Would that be okay? Okay. And just to be clear, like, not just you as a revolutionary, but my friend Brian, and there's another guy, Tom Moore, who's been on our show, who did some episodes about questioning virology as a science, who also is like, no, I'm in Germany building the left. So there are people who I really respect, who that's their view of these things. So this is an ongoing discussion, so I'm very glad to have you here, and I think we're going to keep hitting this, and we're going to see where it leads us to similarities and differences. So let me start with you, Alex, about the other side of the alley over here. What have you been making of what's going on in the Democratic Party, and what does it mean? Obviously, again, none of us are voting for any of these guys or gals. So what does it mean to you, what you see on that side?
Well, sort of in a way that I can see it supporting sort of your argument. I've drawn the one of my observations is that a lot of these Democrats are sort of becoming the QAnon Republicans that they were talking about, before, and so in either way, because this the way I felt about the QAnon Republicans is the same way I'm feeling about these newly forming, conspiratorial Democrats. sure, they might be right about the fact that like there's a heavy, intense manipulation going on, but then they're choosing to reinvest in the system that's obviously taking part in the manipulation. You know, it's not even a cleverly crafted, supposedly outsider organization. Anyone with fucking a fool thought about Donald Trump would very much not be able to support the idea that he was a true outsider, you know, at any point. You know, that's always been a personality play. You know, I think that's for certain, you know. So sorry, give me I'm like gathering all my when it comes to people that are on the Democratic side, they're starting to get, you know, conspiratorial. They're like, I can't believe this. But then they're saying, oh, well, yeah, still, I'm for sure voting Biden all the way, right? Even people that are supposedly like not Democrats, right? People that are falling in line, right? That are supposedly anarchists, communists, you know, far left or whatever, who are like, oh, now I need to vote Biden no matter, you know, nothing, you know, never Trump, never Trump, never Trump, you know? And I do think there's a flaw to that strategy. You know, just because I think Trump is worse in some ways doesn't mean that I don't think that that's a flawed strategy. Um, and that's the way I see them. You know, they're like they're pitching themselves up, and they might get more radical in a way, like aesthetically, you know, the way Trump's support has been. But they're still going to continue to be servants of the system. That's for sure. Anyone that's, I guess, that is where, you know, I am a little removed from the entire conversation, because even though I was involved with the Democratic Party for a little bit, that was when I was like literally a child, a minor, like never like I the last time I ever did anything for anyone trying to do anything for the Democratic Party was the first Bernie Sanders campaign, and since then, and at that point, I had already stopped voting for mainstream Democratic candidates. And then after him, and after seeing everything that he did and how he, you know, he's gone out real sad. He's obviously not any kind of a true hope. But at that time, I thought maybe there was a value in going for something like that. But since then, I haven't been affiliated. And I have a lot of family members that are Democrats. And I've just kind of been like, man, you guys are like totally lost in the sauce, you know, because they're out here kind of getting halfway there of like, oh, this seems fake. You know, Trump obviously set this up. You know, he has his fist. You know, they're saying what we're saying. A lot of them, you know, a lot of Hill dogs. You know, people that voted for Hillary. You know, proud Hillary supporters or whatever. You know, they're going, oh man, this is what's going on. And we would say, oh, maybe this is a revolutionary opportunity. But no, I mean, just in the same way that I don't think Boogaloo Boys or, you know, or Proud Boys or 3%ers are really the kinds of people that we could potentially be allies with. Like that's where I draw the line there. Like, you know, whatever the left comes up with that's this equivalent, that as during this period where they're going to start doing the same, this is my bet. I'm not going to think those people have already gone down the darkest path, right? They've seen that there's a problem, and their strategy, whether they consciously recognize it or not, is to reinvest in the system that's causing the problem, right? A la 1984, right? I love Big Brother, right? You know, like you've spent all this time fighting, and it all just ends up to actually, though, I'm supporting the system, right? And that's their fault, right? That's what I mean. Regardless, I know that these Democrats, and this is where I'm hoping to be able to rouse them, some of them, the ones that don't decide to double down, the ones that have that hesitant thought about why are we doing this? Because I think, it's ridiculous. Joe Biden is an insult to like anyone who is of intelligence that supported the Democrats and saw Joe Biden come to the presidency needs to be feeling like embarrassed. I haven't really talked to me because a lot of my friends are pretty much past believing in the Democratic thing. So I haven't talked to a lot of these. I don't interact with a lot of these people actually day to day. But like I said, in my family, I know there are people that I've not talked to. You know, I don't live in where I'm from, in Bakersfield anymore, so I don't see them a lot. But that would be an awkward conversation because I'd be like, hey, feel pretty dumb, right? Like, because they must, because he is senile. I mean, he's literally making a fool of himself, like live on television, in a way that the Democrats tried to say that Trump was doing, right? Because they all must remember, like that was the whole thing that Hillary tried to run back in 2016, right? Oh well, that was what all the pro-Hillary people were saying. We don't need to go with Bernie because Hillary doesn't have to do anything. Trump's gonna give us the victory himself, right? Well, Biden is doing that for Trump right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping that some people that are Democrats, like you're saying, maybe there is this opportunity from those people, like there maybe has been in the past with people that were supposedly Republicans. But I'm hoping that some of these people that are Democrats can have a moment of doubt, because it's like this whole charade is crazy. Like it does not follow. Let's assume that there was a legitimate political movement here. Would they really have chosen Joe Biden? Like that's crazy. Like it almost seems like they wanted to shoot themselves in the foot. That's kind of I don't know. Like how deep this goes, I don't know, because the Democrats really seem to be cooperating on such a level to let the they have not been competitive foes for sure. That is, they stopped doing that after Obama for some reason. It was like Obama was the last time they really needed to do it. They were like, okay, well, we're gonna sit out of the actually trying to appear, like we're competing. The fact that Biden won at all is just a sign of the incompetence of what goes for the American left. They were so dumb that during their moment to elect someone that wasn't Trump, they went for the worst possible option. But
Okay.
I guess it's about the Democrats. I don't I don't see a lot of movement in terms of what I thought of the Democratic left, or whatever the Democratic voters. In the sense that I still stand by this analysis that I do think that Trump represents a little more rebellious, energy. Whereas the Democratic, well, Trump and so Republicans, right, and the Democrats, they're willing to eat whatever shit is thrown their way, regardless of any logic. And this is the critique, right? I sound like a fucking right winger, I guess, if you want to qualify me right, because I do. That's like, talk about soft power, right? Like, the all you have to do is throw some emotional, do some emotional poking onto the Democratic left, and you have them in your hands. It's very little what they ask for, in order, and not to say that again, the Trump right, whatever, it's better or not. They're fools too, like in my way, like they're getting fooled too, into the same game. But the Democratic left is just unwilling, and that's why it's fucking scary to me. Like, it's just, we'll give you this pill, you'll swallow it, and you don't have to ask any questions. Just trust us. And it shows a massive level of compliance. And again, if we go by the shit that happened during the pandemic, that's why we ended up in rooms with people who would not have talked to before, probably. This is why this conversion into this more nuanced analysis of what's happening at the bottom, I've gained that, at least that insight, at least, that, oh damn, like, like I was on that fucking side of that line that they're waging between us. And then the shit in between is more nuanced than you think. Yes, there are people on the extremes that no matter what, you're gonna not fucking convince. But that middle part is more nuanced than I thought, and so the people who commit to just vote regardless, of what happens, just that color, that's my gang, that's my identity, I guess, if you would put it. It's fucking hard to, I don't know what I can say to you, like, other than expose why I disagree with you, in that analysis might not we go far enough, and that, if you are gonna really expect change, fundamental change, and you're starting to understand more the fundamentals of the problems, you're gonna have to be okay with violence, right? Because this is the rejection of the right wing. You know what I mean? It's like, and I'm not saying that that's my first choice, right? Like of that I want, this to turn into a violent thing. But if you understand processes of history of things, right, how things move forward, or things dislodge and change, it doesn't come from fucking peaceful protests. And that's what I hear from most people that have voted and vote. And I really don't have a lot of my polls on it right now, because I don't have a lot of people that vote Democrat. Like the people that I talk to are very few right now, and my family doesn't fucking vote. They're done too with this bullshit, with this charade. But again, it's just that's what I see, and so they were willing to go with this fucking the Biden mental health bullshit and this whole dance, which I still think is a choreography for the whole thing. These are these extremes of Trump's heroic strength versus the mental incompetence of Biden. This is where I go into call me conspirational, but it's like, nah, dude, this shit is too perfect. This dichotomy, this is too fucking perfect. And it's being pushed into the people who are playing this fucking game, who are connected to this matrix of narratives, right? And get moved one way or the other. And again, that you're in the middle doesn't mean that you're not captured. You're still a ping pong ball in between the fucking systems, between the people who will vote regardless on which side. And so I think we're fucked. Like, I don't want to make a distinction that the right or the left is more fucked. I think we're fucked either way, because we're being funneled into the same place. And sure, they have to adapt. This is where I consider Jake's analysis, right? Like, they have a goal, and that they have different scenarios that they have to plan out, because not everything pans out exactly how they decide. There are things that come up. And they have to address it. The people who want to govern us and move us in certain directions. But this is why, again, go back to how we started this episode talking about Trump, and how the people that I thought, again, were going to be like some sort of wrench in the gears of this machine. Again, we're falling back into this fucking shit. And so, like, it kind of, I throw my hands up. It's like, you fucking serious? So come election time, they still find a way to get you back into the fucking system somehow.
Yeah, I do think it's interesting that when we talked about what had happened with Trump this weekend, I think we spent more time talking about the ruling class, or looking at there. And now, as I think about what's going on with the Democratic Party, I look more at the working class, or at the working class base that supports Democrats. I want to go to that place. I do want to say that I do think there's something meaningful about the fact that the ruler of the formal ruler of the largest global hegemon is such a decayed person. It does seem to reflect, compared to the ruler of Russia or the ruler of China, the face. These are all faces for these people, because there's rulers behind them who really run the show. I do think that's a problem for the United States. I do think that represents a problem for U.S. projecting its own strength and power that it wants to. And so I think in 2020, they tried a few characters who were opposition to Sanders, and Sanders was a trap in the thing, but none of them could defeat Sanders. So remember, all the power in the establishment had to get behind Biden, because they felt he was the only one who could really beat Sanders. And there's a guy who said that recently, who said, look, because Biden was complaining, like, don't let the elites pick your person for you. And I said, dude, we already picked you in 2020. And so what are you talking about? We're just saying, move aside here. And I think that section of the ruling class that is thinking the Democratic Party is the way they want to go feels like it has no wind in its sails. It just feels like it's come to a halt. But then I am left with thinking about workers. I'm thinking about the Revolutionary Communist Party that called for a vote for Biden in 2020. Like, I'm thinking about the Cornel West, who called for a vote in 2020 for Biden and said, hey, I don't like it, but we got to do that. And I'm thinking about the people who have been so fearful of democracy being taken from them. But if you draw a line from 2016 to 2020 to 2024, and you draw a line through their experience in the Democratic Party, they have been through a selection process that has nothing close to democracy inside of that. Now, I believe we all live in a dictatorship anyway. I think this whole thing, like this quote democracy we live in, that we vote for people, it's actually just the covering, it's the velvet glove of a dictatorship. But it's amazing to me the cognitive dissonance that they have been able to get people to be so concerned about democracy, yet their own experience in their own party is completely undemocratic, like more undemocratic than the side of the Republicans. They have more of an actual process, even though, again, I said the whole thing's a dictatorship, than on the side of the Democrats. And I do think it's kind of scary to me, the degree to which the base within the Democratic Party is so passive in relationship to its autocracy being imposed on it, and is actually asking for that autocracy to be imposed on it. And in that regard, if I was going to ask myself which base is more dangerous, I feel like this space is more dangerous. One, because of that framework, and two, because they're not armed. Like, that group is hopeless in relationship to a state that's going to use power. Of course, they're in no position to put any terms to that state. And Alex, you're absolutely right to know that the other side, which is better armed, could be used, as the brown shirts were, against its own working class. But at least if you were going to actually oppose the state, you are in a position where you have guns, and people have the guns for those reasons. Like, their reasons is not hunting, like it is for some, but some of it's just like, I don't trust the state. Now, largely they're thinking Democrats, but at the end of the day, the question is, which way will they break when the Republicans come for them the same way? And we don't know. If history is any guide right now, recently, my recent history has been to be very disappointed by the responses to the working class. I would like to think that they would finally, on the right side, they would wake up and turn their guns against their own state. I'm not sure. So I would say that is probably what has been most. But I will say this, and here's the bright side to what has happened with the Democrats. I think the mainstream media has been mad at Biden and what they've done. They said, motherfucker, we lied for you so hard, and we've gotten exposed. Like, we've gotten kind of exposed here in a way that we did not expect. So it has been interesting in the press conferences to watch them say, you lied to us, you lied to us, you lied to us. It's like, come on, dudes. You were lying for them to us about this guy. But it has been interesting to watch the people who put him up as the media try to be so angry at this dude for being so old, and he's got and struck by stuff in his brain and Parkinson's or what's happening, and they're mad now that it's been revealed. And so they stand revealed. And I do think there's something positive in that, because if there's one thing I've heard from any people who, like, I do hear from Democrats, and Brandy hears from Democrats, it is that they were like, whoa, this was a surprise. And I think it's caused them to possibly question, I hope, possibly question the shit they're being fed by their news sources. That's me being positive. So I think that might be one result of this, is people who are on that very passive side possibly being a little more questioning of what they heard from their MSNBC or CNN about the cheap fakes and things like that. Even though, again, those cheap fakes and deep fakes are coming, and they are there. So I don't know. That's what I think about it. I'll bring it back to you, Alex, and maybe we'll wrap up.
Yeah. Well, I guess, like, in terms of, I do want to attach to what you said about the Democrats being the perfect tools of the state because they're not armed, because they need the state to act for them, right? That nanny state is really true. This is where the Republican criticism of the Democrats stings true, because they do believe in a nanny state. They do need, oh, mommy, I'm scared. Come get me. Like that. They don't believe in standing up for themselves. That's been the weakness. But I'm going to do this yet again. That to me is the like the true left that we lost with the First World War. Because even the supposed far left that came after, the communists, the Bolsheviks, to me, they were already on a subversive angle. Even though they used a truly revolutionary energy and they were revolutionary in a way, they forsook the actual idea of localized power, of all power to the councils, right? So even them, you can accuse them of being dishonest to their own beliefs, right? But if we go back to those true beliefs of what was going on at that time, they believed in this electoral system is not really, it's just there. There were so many workers. They had all their own arms, right? The sailors knew exactly, they knew who to go to when they were distributing arms to the people. It was not just, oh, we're going to bring a crate out. There's already 4, 5, 6 different union formed, factory formed militias, neighborhood militias. They're coming in and people have their ways because some of them are veterans. Some of them know what is up, or there's a long history in Europe going back to militia watches of medieval, ages. And so they had this, and that was a real potential, right? And it took the powers that be it took them a lot to be able to pull off what they did during the First World War, right? And so for me, if anything, this is the advantage that we have right now. They think it's going to take a lot less, right? I think the powers that be pulled off like a platinum level performance for the First World War. They like went through the eye of the needle. I think it easily could have gone all wrong for them. It very nearly did, historically. This time around, because of what we're saying, the left is defeated, the revolution is defeated, right? And this is the problem with these Democrats. They're not real. They would be scared by a Black Panther, right? If a Black Panther came up to them, oh my God, this man has a gun, right? Forgetting the fact that the Panthers were a pivotal organization for just a brief moment, igniting this belief in a people that they could truly have sovereignty and autonomy over their lives, right? But to me, that's the thing. That's the old message has to just be brought up in that way. It needs to be updated, of course. We have to learn from our mistakes. But to me, it's not like we need to change our tune. We just need to be honest to the tune that we are pretending to play. That is the thing. And that is where I have always found the Democrats at fault. They try to say that they believe in equality and they believe in all these things, but they continue to support these foreign wars. They continue to support the exploitation of the worker, right? They continue to support the exploitation of our natural environment, right? And the continued escalation of global catastrophe, right? That's the thing. They're hypocrites, right? On the right, they're not so much hypocritical, maybe, is what I would say. Because their idea, I mean, again, that's my thing. Their idea is, they want a king or they want some all father, or they want, they want the Pope or whatever they want, But on the left, you supposedly say you want all power for all people, but you're not giving all people all power. So to me, the response has to be give all people all power. Like that's it's the scariest question, but that to me, that's the only true question of a good revolution. Because this is again where I have to reiterate, I will not stand behind a so-called national revolution. I will not stand behind a so-called exclusive revolution. I only believe in a human revolution. This is the only revolution that I have ever believed in since the moment that I've ever believed in revolution. And that's the revolution that hopefully I can live for. And it's the only one that I'd be willing to die for at all. So.
And to bring balance, if you will, to the notion of hypocrisy that exists on both sides, Kenny and I, who have made relations with people on the right and understood what happened with this whole thing about vaccine passports and control of workers' movement internally and externally, the reason we are so disappointed that people are people are calling for surveillance at the border is because all the methods that were used internally to control workers are being sharpened and heightened and being called for by the very people only a year ago. We're seeing those same passports used to control them Oh yeah, definitely do it to these people coming across these borders. So that is a deep hypocrisy to me, and I think the probably one of the biggest. So just in case you're out there and you call yourself right and think it's just Democrats' hypocrisy, is the Black Panther Party. When the biggest reason for gun regulation in this country and in the state of California was because blacks were armed, and the NRA supported gun regulation on the Black Panther Party. Dude, I can't. There's no deeper hypocrisy. That is probably the deepest hypocrisy I can think of. So it is not a monopoly on the left or so-called left among Democrats. The right has as much, and to the extent that we are hypocritical, there's no revolutionary future for any of us, because we have to be about truth. And the truth is, we are all being exploited. We are all under attack, and the globe is on the balance here. And the only hope for it is revolution. So unless we get right with ourselves and are more honest with ourselves and each other, there's no hope. So I just want to say that I wish I could say there's more hypocrisy on one side than the other. There seems to be plenty to go around.
Yeah, and I think that whole border thing is central. There's a reason it comes up during the elections. Like there's a reason Trump is appealing to that shit right now, like the mass deportations, right? The biggest deportation in history, right? To deflect from the fact that I do think that the immigration actually favors and stabilizes a system in crisis. It is not that they're trying to take your jobs. Is that the people who rule this system are using foreign, like labor outside these boundaries, however they fucking please. Whenever they fucking, there's a reason NAFTA happened. There's a reason, you're getting these waves beyond, the obvious fact that they've destroyed, destabilized these countries uh, it's useful for the people who rule. And the problem is not the people crossing the border, right? The problem is not, using these technologies against it, because they do bite us in the ass, And ultimately, if you're supporting that shit, is supporting your own oppression, your own surveillance, your own deflection of, accepting the own deflection of the people who have made this fucking mess, and so yes, I mean there's inconsistency, and hypocrisy, like you say, on both sides, but I want to focus more on the inconsistency. I don't know, whatever. That's why I invite people. And that's why we have these conversations, right? To invite people to think beyond these assumptions, right? That we take for as a given, right? Like that immigration is bad for you, for your job, and that's a direct connection that people make. There is a lot more to that, and the people who rule this world know that. But we don't. We get captured in this hate that person, or be afraid of that person, and then we get what we get.
And I think important to say that if you're going to talk about the future of labor and the future of the possibility of actually having a job, and think that the discussion is about immigration and not about artificial intelligence, you are being lied to. So that's what they get to do. Because I already saw an article, they're expecting by 2035, I don't know if they're going to hit this, but the 35% of the US military will be placed by robots by 2035. Like, what do you think that means for the rest of us? And I'm sorry, folks, it's not just manual labor. There's all sorts of mental labor shit being automated here. So they get to talk about people coming across the border, taking your job. And this shit over here is happening right over here, taking everyone's job. And then that's why they're talking about UBI, to maybe make it so that you are not a soft landing while you got nothing. But know you are being lied to when they emphasize around the future of labor, when they talk about immigrants, and no discussion about artificial intelligence and what's actually taking place to the workforce.
Just real quick, this is where I also, align with Jeff, in the sense that I do think that because you alluded to this, Alex, that you were saying that the right, wants to kind of return to this more feudal, arrangement. I think the left is as committed into that destiny, and it's not an ideological goal. It's a necessity of or a natural progression of what the fuck is happening with this capitalist system. and it's coming from both sides, and again, they have their own narratives, but the infrastructure, the technological, all that shit, and also like the ideological frame from a left side, what they call the left, the Democrat type are deeply committed to this shit. So that techno feudal order, that is sort of arising because masses of people, or landless people, jobless people, is gonna be, again, manufactured. And also, we haven't even fucking talked about this. This is a fucking reason, like, JD Vance it comes from like the tech capital, and fucking, like the tech capital is behind Trump big time, and we didn't even get into that, but but it's not, to me, that's not necessarily the end goal. It's kind of a necessity of the progression of the system, and yeah, so maybe that's a topic for another time, but again, it's all funneling into the same shit. As long as you stay in the parameters that they want us to stay within.
And also to say, Project 2025, of the 4 planks in there, 2 of them, there are 4 major planks to it. One of those planks is around data collection. A third plank is around online education. So, and it's not for all the globe and like that, but something's coming when that's happening. Is that it for today then?
Well, I think it's only it, because I feel like we could go on and on.
Yes.
Like that's because I could keep saying more, but then we're gonna find ourselves another 2 hours in, and then,
let's call it. Let's that's a good way. So, I think this was I'm glad we had this conversation, and I think we're gonna this thing about right and left is gonna keep coming, largely because you're on here, Alex, which I'm really glad. So, and we'll just see over time. But I think we all recognize there are interesting times coming ahead. So I'm really glad we had this conversation, and I'm hoping Eduardo said he'll be back next week. Let's stay on briefly to see if we can come up with what we think we'll be talking about next week, because I think I have an idea, and I think it might be Africa, but we'll see. Anyway, thank you guys for doing this today, and it was a fun conversation. And as always, Alex, I'm looking forward to the day when we're sitting next to each other again. So hopefully next week.
Once again, sorry, I gotta get my scheduling in control. I missed my bus.
Yep, that's all good. All right, so that does it for this week's episode. What's Left is a weekly political podcast channel challenging the mainstream left. We post information about our topics and our guests on the episode notes wherever you found this episode, or on our blog, what'sleftpodcast.com. You can find past episodes to this podcast channel there and connect with us. I remind you, if you like anything you've heard here, please subscribe, rate, or review. Turn on notifications to any of our 8 platforms or 7 platforms: Spotify, iTunes, Bitchute, Odysee, Rumble, YouTube, or Telegram. And if you would like to give us feedback about something you've heard or suggest something for us, please contact us through our blog. Anyway, for Andy, for Alex, for Kenny, that's it for this week, and hopefully you join us with Eduardo joining us as well next week for What's Left.